Time moves very slowly here. The people in this arid land are living much as their ancestors did hundreds of years ago. But the modern world has touched them, made them aware of the great gap that exists between themselves and those who are reaping the benefits of progress. These are the tribal people of Sindh, the southeastern province of Pakistan. The tribal people live mainly in lower Sindh, scattered in villages and small towns, and reliant on seasonal agricultural labor for their livelihoods. There's little rainfall, and the soil is poor, needing intensive cultivation and irrigation to produce good crops. Farming methods have changed little in generations, and life here is a constant struggle for survival. The province is divided by the Indus River, in which the arteries of Sindh life, the canals, flow. But the irrigation system does not extend effectively as far east as Kunri, and often the soil remains parched, salt-caked, and infertile, yielding nothing. Nothing, that is, but the inevitable thorn bush. Like the thorn bush which flourishes under such hardship, amongst these depressed people of Sindh today, there's an emerging of the Christian spirit. Few of the tribal people own their own lands. They're usually laborers or tenant farmers. For those in the rural communities, there's little opportunity for self-advancement. Muslims make up 94% of the population and are the major landowners. There are about 1 million tribal people in Sindh, divided into many distinct groups, each with their own tribal language. These are the scheduled castes, the largest minority group in the province, of Hindu background, but culturally and politically despised by caste Hindus and the Muslim majority. For young people growing up in the villages, there's an awareness that they're being left behind. Educationally and materially, the world is moving further and further away. For these 4 boys, there's the chance for a better kind of life. They're going to live in the tribal boys' hostel at Nir Prakas, with about 20 other boys, all baptized Christians. They will attend a local school and receive help with schoolwork from the hostel wardens. Additionally, they'll be given instruction in basic trade skills and the Christian way of life. Most of them come from tribes where the literacy rate is only 2%. The knowledge they receive here will open a new world of opportunity to them. We hope it will not take them off to the cities, but that they'll return to their villages with skills that offer an alternative to the subsistence way of life of their parents. The hostel wardens are members of the New Zealand Church Missionary Society team in Sindh, who assist Anthony, a tribal Christian. Dedicated to encouraging the boys' understanding of the Christian faith, their hope is that those who study here will one day become spiritual leaders amongst their own people. When they arrive, each boy is given a garden plot. Their produce is bought by the hostel, thus providing the boys with pocket money and the hostel with provisions. Nearby at Ratnabad, a similar self-help program is being run. The Christian Rural Service was set up by a Pakistani Christian and horticulturalist, Mr. Raj Wadawa Mao, to help rural farmers improve their standard of living. Working with him is a British member of the CMS team. The program on social and agricultural development includes instruction in establishing simple cottage industries, as well as livestock and poultry keeping. His role is one being taken increasingly by missionaries the world over, working alongside indigenous leaders like Raj Wadawamal, offering the particular skills and knowledge that he can contribute.
Lower Sindh Rural Development Panchayat has got 17 cooperatives, and it is spread to about 20-30 miles, and it has got 350 members now.
Farmers need to improve their methods and the quality and diversity of their crops. They would be unable to afford this themselves, so Raj Wadawamal encourages them to form cooperatives where each member buys a certain number of shares against which they may borrow to buy implements, seeds, fertilizers and pesticides. At harvest time, when they can afford it, they pay back their loans.
The climate of Sindh is quite humid and we don't get extremes here. So the pests of various crops multiply at a rapid rate. So we encourage our members of the cooperatives to use suitable pesticides to keep them under control. And it's quite encouraging that this year 10 members purchased their own hand knapsack sprayers and they use them for spraying cotton and vegetables. And for spraying fruit trees, we have designed our own hand pump sprayer, which is very efficient, and we won't like to use any power sprayer because its working is quite expensive. Also, we don't get spare parts here. So this hand machine has done very well.
The emphasis of the Christian Rural Service is on a practical, simple technology appropriate to the needs of the local people. Appropriate to the needs of the local people is one of the Church's most important considerations in its ministry amongst the tribes of Sindh. In 1960, the Bible and Medical Missionary Fellowship established their first medical outreach program through the Christian Caravan Hospital. Mobile units were towed to different sites around Lower Sindh, taking medical care to the more isolated villages. Today, the old Caravan Hospital buildings are permanently sited at Ratnabad, where a TB clinic is still conducted along with a conference center for evangelism and outreach. After careful study of the needs of the area, it was decided to centralize the medical program at a new base hospital at Kunri. From here, an expression of Christian concern for the whole man, spiritual and physical, is being carried out, with mobile teams of health workers making regular visits to surrounding villages. Family health care is an important aspect of the hospital's program. Infant and child mortality rates are high, and the aim is to reduce the number of deaths by giving a full course of immunization and teaching the mothers simple hygiene and other measures to prevent disease. Antenatal clinics are also held, and family planning advice encourages parents to limit the number of children and to increase the interval between births. The incidence of TB here is between 40 and 50%. Malnutrition, malaria, and other diseases are common. The hospital has 50 beds for inpatients, and the occupancy rate is high.
हम इसके पास हम भी देखेंगे इसके बाद
The eye unit is a much-needed facility. Villages are visited systematically by a medical team which treats simple eye diseases and refers urgent conditions to the unit. For several months of the year, eye camps are held, a period of intensive activity with patients from a wide area coming in for treatment. At times like these, unit head Dr. Ralph Heaton, an Englishman, performs up to 55 cataract operations in a day. Back in the wards, a prayer to thank the Lord for the gift of sight. Isolated as it is, the hospital is dependent on the ingenuity of its maintenance engineer, who's called on to perform a bewildering variety of tasks. Even the doctors agree. He's the most important man on the compound. A nurse aid training program is being run at Kunri to provide a major source of auxiliary medical workers for the hospital and to staff health posts and mobile teams in the years ahead. This means that local trained staff are available to work amongst their own people. As part of the village healthcare program, mobile medical teams regularly visit the outlying villages to conduct clinics. A four-wheel drive vehicle is essential for travel. The terrain is difficult. The roads, where they exist, are extremely poor. Prior to the clinic, the village has been visited and the purposes of the clinic explained. The customs of these people are often bound up in superstition and fear, and few dare venture into government hospitals. But here, in their own village, surrounded by family and friends, they're far more likely to come forward for treatment. The emphasis of medical mission has shifted from hospital mission to community health care. The most important function in the program of developing healthy village communities is the training of nationals as village health workers. Health education is a slow process. Workers must overcome the people's fatalistic acceptance of the status quo. The visiting teams instruct women in basic nutrition and simple hygiene measures. Local kitchenware and locally available foods are used to prepare acceptable and nutritious foods.
Kanji. Anak Mohan.
In teams of two, local healthcare workers are responsible for the TB control program. As they acquire further knowledge and learn new skills on the training program, they'll also add other activities to their work. The arrival of the motorcycle always prompts excitement. At least 80% of children in any one village must receive the BCG injection for it to have any effect in controlling the spread of TB. Once they hear the baby's comment, the children's curiosity rapidly fades. As the church's medical, social, and evangelistic outreach grows, members of the church in other parts of Pakistan are beginning to recognize their responsibility to bring the gospel to the tribal people of Sindh.
ताकि मेरे नाम से जो कुछ बाप से मांगो वो तुमको दे मैं तुमको इन बातों का हुक्म इसलिए देता हूं कि तुम एक दूसरे से मोहब्बत रखो अगर दुनिया तुमसे अदावत रखती है तो तुम जानते हो.
As the concept of Christian giving is better understood, church projects in tribal areas are being supported by the Pakistani church members themselves. Closely involved with the work of expatriate missionaries is the Reverend Bashir Jiwan, Bishop's Commissary for Evangelism in the Sindh. Assisting him is a recently ordained deacon from this tribal group. For them, each baptism is a reaffirmation of the Church's commitment to these people.
ये बख्श जो कोई हमारे ओहदे और खिदमत के लिए यहाँ तेरी नजर किया जाए वह आसमानी नेकियों से रास्ता भी हो और अबदी अजर पाए। राम जी मैं तुझे बाप।
The end result of the intense interest in the gospel message by the tribal people is a growing number of baptisms and requests for teaching.
इस शख्स को मसीह के गले की जमात में शामिल करते और उस पर सलीब की शक्ल इस बात का निशान बनाते हैं कि वो आइंदा इस बात से नहीं शर्माएगा कि मसीह मसलूब के ईमान का इकरार करे और उसके झंडे तले गुनाह दुनिया और शैतान से मर्दाना लड़े और मरते दम तक मसीह का वफादार सिपाही और खिदमतगुजार बना रहे।
There's little resemblance here to the Western idea of going to church, but perhaps the very simplicity of their worship is closer to the roots of the Christian faith.
इस बात की यादगारी में कि मसीह का खून तुम्हारे लिए बहाया गया और शुक्र कर।
A scattered and semi-nomadic people, divided by culture and language, forbidden by caste to eat together or intermarry, gather to sit in the heat and dust to celebrate the joy of their Christian brotherhood.
इसी तरह खाने के बाद उसने प्याले को लिया।
Okay, that's good.
Christianity, though, is not a new broom to sweep indigenous culture and the old way of life before it. Perhaps the old ways are sometimes the best. At the BTI at Hyderabad, Fred Stock, a United Presbyterian missionary from the USA, has been working with some of the students composing new Christian hymns. For centuries, the Hindu religious teachers have used song as a medium for their lessons. Now the Christian message is being spread in the familiar rhythm and tune pattern of the bhajans. The occasions for singing in tribal life are many, and the BTI Bhajan singing team have found that the words of the gospel, which may be rejected in conventional Western services and hymns, are provoking interest when presented in the traditional musical form. New Zealanders Joan and Keith Mitchell are involved with the Institute's main work of training Christian tribal workers and translating material for worship and teaching into tribal languages. Keith regularly travels to surrounding villages where he's engaged on a program to teach lay leaders in their own environment. A trained primary teacher, he enjoys this opportunity to teach at village level. But even though he speaks Sindhi, he faces the same great stumbling block that all expatriates do here: language. The different tribal groups each speak their own language, some of which are not even written down. While the men may also speak Sindhi or Urdu, only a few of the women have a second language. Thus, most of the Christian workers face the frustration of being able to communicate with the people only indirectly through a translator.
जो उसके पास आता है वो उनकी मदद करता है जिस तरह उसने उसकी मदद की थी। जो उसके पास उसी तरह आता है वो उनको मुक्ति देता है। We are working among the tribal people of the Hindu background in Sindh. They are more than 1 million in number. Religiously, they are idol worshippers, superstitious, and are under the bondage of evil spirits. Socially and politically, they are depressed class of people. Almost all of them are the tenants to the Muslim landlords. Of course, some of them own land of their own. There is 85% illiteracy, and there is poverty and sickness. These people are tremendously responsive to the gospel. We baptize the average of 300 people every year. The wind of the Lord is blowing. This is a mission field in every sense of the word. We need both the national as well as the expatriate missionaries for this evangelistic and social ministry. Above all, we need your prayers very much for the tribal church in the making.
The Ratnabad Conference Centre aims to build the church in Sindh on firm foundations, with the tribal people involved at every level. These men are being trained to teach, prepare for baptism and confirmation, and assist in worship in their own villages. From their ranks are coming the first evangelists, and later, as their talents are discovered and developed, the pastors for the tribal churches. Just as the missionaries at work in Sindh are of many nationalities and denominations, so the people they teach are of many tribal and cultural backgrounds. They come here from remote rural villages to join in the brotherhood of Christ, to hear God's word, and to be strengthened in their understanding. The tribal people of Sindh are responsive to the gospel message. Yes, the wind of the Lord is blowing. This is a mission field in every sense of the word. But the future strength of this tribal church in the making will depend on men like these, taking the gospel to their own people throughout the Sindh.